Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? And welcome to another edition of the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. My name is TJ Jones. Thanks for checking out the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Well, Who Dat Nation, the wild card weekend is over. We know now who the first round bye teams are going to take on in the divisional round of the playoffs. And now the New Orleans Saints have a very huge task taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, a Philadelphia Eagles team who come out of a very wild and very unconventional way of winning a football game. Cody Parkey's 43-yard field goal doinked off the left upright, the bottom crossbar, and landed in the field of play. You cannot make this stuff up, man. Cody Parkey, man, unbelievable. And the ironic thing about it was Coach Doug Peterson called a timeout to ice Cody Parkey the first time, and Cody Parkey kicked the field goal, and it went right between the upright. That's the crazy thing about it. So for all those people that say that icing the kicker don't work, it does. But let's talk about the divisional round of the playoffs. The Philadelphia Eagles, they beat the Chicago Bears, a Chicago Bears team that a lot of people thought were Super Bowl favorites. A lot of people thought the defense that they had with Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith and Fast Eddie Jackson and Kyle Fuller and Akeem Hicks, I mean, they thought that they had what it take to make it to the Super Bowl. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. The Philadelphia Eagles move on to the divisional round to take on the New Orleans Saints. Now, this isn't a State of the Saints podcast that talks about predictions. No, I'm going to do that later on in the week. This edition is for the Who Dat Nation. That's right, I'm talking to the Who Dat Nation right now. All those people out there that when they found out that the Philadelphia Eagles were coming back to play the New Orleans Saints in the divisional round, they were jumping around and cheering around their living room. And they think that this is going to be that same Week 11 matchup it was when the Saints played the Eagles, when the Saints blew them boys out. If you think that this is going to be the same Philadelphia Eagles team, you're sadly mistaken. And this is what I have a problem with the Who Dat Nation sometimes. We think that just because the Saints beat a team the first time, that means we're going to beat them over and over again. You have to understand about matchups. You got to understand about schemes. You got to understand that just the way the New Orleans Saints team look at game film, other teams do the same thing. And you have to account for Carson Wentz not playing in this game. What you have is a reigning Super Bowl MVP in Nick Foles. Now, you may not think a lot about Nick Foles. You might think that Nick Foles it's just some other quarterback. It don't matter. But Nick Foles is something special. This guy has won 4 of his last 5 games going into the playoffs. They needed some help to get in, and they beat the #1 ranked defense in the playoffs in the Chicago Bears to get here. Golden Tate is more familiar with the playbook. You also have a former New Orleans Saint and Darren Sproles, and I don't think I need to tell anybody about how dynamic he is. This is a team right here that got slapped in the face by the New Orleans Saints in Week 11. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Think about Week 13 when the New Orleans Saints took on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, do you remember how you felt as a Saints fan? You remember how angry you were that the Saints lost to the Cowboys, that you had to deal with those Dallas Cowboy fans, those fans that were all in your face talking about we got y'all number and y'all suck and y'all fake and we for real. Do you remember how that made you feel? Do you remember that anger? Do you remember the excitement that you had because you wanted the Dallas Cowboys to win against the Seattle Seahawks just so they can come to New Orleans to take on the Saints? Do you remember that? Now imagine if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan. And imagine if you are a Philadelphia Eagles team. They feel the same way about the New Orleans Saints. This is not going to be an easy game. So, for all those people out here that's thinking that the Saints are just going to blow the doors off the Philadelphia Eagles, you might want to think twice about it. Because I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but a blowout is not going to happen this time around. This has been the State of the Saints podcast. Check out the State of the Saints podcast on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, search the State of the Saints podcast. Hit that bell for notifications. Follow the State of the Saints podcast on Facebook, facebook.com, search the State of the Saints podcast. Previous podcast episodes are available on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and iTunes. Till next time, all I have to say is, who dat?